I can do anything. I can reach any goal today. I can do what I want. I can be what I want to be.
Hi guys, Katie Azevedo here from SchoolHabits.com. Today's video is about how to write a thesis 101. Basically what you wish your English teacher taught you. And I say what you wish your English teacher taught you because I have had so many conversations with some of my students about how to write a thesis statement, and I feel like I can explain it in a couple steps and their faces are like, why didn't my English teacher ever say it that way? And I don't know, because there's so many different ways to teach a thesis, but a thesis is one thing. So hopefully the way that I've explained it to all my students for so long is helpful to you, and that's what I'm going to do here. So, persuasive and analytical essays that you write for school, they have to have a thesis statement. The only writing assignments that don't need a thesis statement are poems, diary entries, summarizations, things like that, okay? So what is a thesis statement? Maybe we should start with that. A thesis statement is a clear, simple statement, okay? Usually 1 or 2 sentences. Even when you're getting into complex papers and like 100-page papers, college, right? It still should only be 1 or 2 sentences, okay? That tells the reader exactly what argument you're gonna prove and then how you're gonna prove it. That's a key step. What you're proving, how you're gonna go about doing that. You're gonna structure your entire paper around the thesis statement. It's essentially the most important sentence in your entire essay. So the more specific the thesis statement, the stronger the essay. Although a thesis statement is essentially your opinion on a topic, right? Always avoid language like, in my opinion, and I believe, etc. Because thesis statements that begin with language like this, they're just begging to be counter-argued. You're just like, argue with me, please, disprove me. So if I were to be like, I think that the sky is blue, then I mean, I'm telling you that I don't really believe that, and I'm asking you to prove to me that it's purple. But if I were just to state, you know what, sky is blue. End of story, period. I'm not really leaving a lot of wiggle room for you to come back and counter what I'm saying. So just state your opinion like it's fact. All right, so how do you write a thesis statement? 3 basic steps here, right? Number 1, answer a question. That's at the core of a thesis statement, of a good thesis statement. So a teacher might ask you in the book, how does Dan's traumatic childhood affect him later in adulthood? Or maybe, how does the main character, Rebecca, change throughout the story? So, or maybe the question is, what does the river symbolize in the story? And why is that so important? So your answer to the question, whatever the question is part of your thesis statement, okay? But it is only the first part. Let's look at an example, because this can be kind of a tough one. So let's say the question is this. This is the question that your teacher provides you. Should working a set amount of community service hours be a high school graduation requirement? Okay? Your answer to this question might be no. High school students should not be required to do community service before being allowed to graduate. Okay? That's your answer. So this is a start. You've answered the question. Yay, that's an important step. But this would make a very weak thesis statement. It would be awful, actually, because it's not persuasive. You're not convincing me of anything, and the reader has no idea what your essay is going to be about. So here you have to refine it. You have to make it better. But if the assignment is to create your own thesis statement, okay, instead of responding to a question provided by your teacher, and this is actually something as you get into more challenging like honors English classes, AP English classes, sometimes just any high school English class. If you're in middle school, sometimes typically your teacher is going to provide you the question. As you get into high school, harder level English classes, history classes too. English isn't the only class you're writing a thesis for. And definitely college, you're gonna have to create your own thesis statement, okay? But you would start the process the same way, with a question. Create a question about the book, the article, whatever, based on a real question you have about the material. If you read the story, the book, whatever, and you find yourself wondering, why does the character do that? Or what's the significance of the blinking green light? Great Gatsby, all you guys know that. Then use those questions as material for your thesis statement. Those are real questions and you're gonna use them. Here's a tip though, okay? So if you know you're gonna eventually be writing a thesis paper on a book you're reading, keep track of any questions that arise as you read the book. It's easier to keep track of these things as you read the book. Write them down on the inside cover or bookmark, make from scrap paper, whatever, because these questions could turn into awesome thesis statements later on, and it's easier to keep track of the questions as you go versus finishing the book and trying to remember what your questions were as you were reading, okay? So you're saving yourself a step here. Step 2 to writing a thesis statement is to refine the answer to the question and be more specific. So step 1, you came up with an answer, just like a yes or no, really, right? Here you're refining your answer, you're being more specific. So instead of just presenting your opinion about community service, you could revise your thesis statement, the one that we came up with before, to this. Let me think. Implementing a graduation requirement for completing community service hours would have negative consequences. This is terrible. Let me start over. Implementing a graduation requirement for completing community service hours would have negative consequences for both the students and the community, okay? That thesis statement's a little bit better than my first one. Now I don't sound like I'm 9. Maybe now I sound like I'm a little bit older. But it's still not perfect, okay? Because it's not persuasive. It's missing depth, which you can add, of course, by bringing in examples, which is the next step. So step 3 to writing a good thesis statement, things that you wish your teacher always told you, is to bring in examples. So the next version of your thesis statement, the third version here, could look something like this. Implementing a graduation requirement for completing community service hours would have negative consequences for both the students and the community. Okay, that's what I said before, and this is what you're adding. Because, all right, it would add stress to already overworked students. It would give students the message that helping the community is a burden. And it would force overworked students to do poor quality service jobs due to lack of time. That's all one sentence. Okay, so where and how to use your thesis statement. So you've written it, that's awesome. What do you do with it? Okay, a thesis belongs in the introduction paragraph of a persuasive or an analytical essay. Okay, it could be the first sentence, it could be the last sentence, it could be anywhere in the middle. Personally, I do like to put my thesis statement as the last sentence of the opening paragraph, a couple different reasons. I do think a good thesis statement can also function as a good transition sentence into the next paragraph. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1. It's your, boom, I'm ending with my thesis. Now you know what I'm talking about. Oh, and look, I'm naturally kind of segueing, whatever, into the next paragraph, okay? And then your introduction paragraph is not the only place your thesis goes. It should be speckled throughout your entire essay and stated clearly again in the conclusion paragraph. Make sure you come around full cycle to the conclusion at the end so the reader feels like you've made your point and you've said it again. Okay, that's part of the persuasion here. If your writing is on target, which it should be, and very focused, your thesis statement could actually function as the topic sentence of each of the middle paragraphs. So if you have a 5-paragraph essay, it could be in the middle, definitely have it at your conclusion, and you could kind of like plop your thesis statement as the topic sentence to each of these paragraphs. Don't actually do that though, because that sounds repetitive. Frankly, it just sounds bad and young. But a cool trick, okay, to use if you feel like you're getting lost and off topic, you know, when you're writing and you're like, I think I'm saying something good, but I kind of forget what I'm doing with this. Just imagine your thesis statement as the topic sentence of each of your paragraphs. And that kind of brings you back on target, okay? Like as if it were a stamp. If you had a stamp of your thesis statement, you could technically stamp it throughout your entire paper in every paragraph, but you don't actually do that because then the reader feels like, I get it, you know? So as with so many school habits, coming up with and writing a thesis statement gets easier the more you practice. It can also be helpful to train yourself. Make it a game maybe to look for an author's thesis statement every time you read an article or a blog or whatever. Because if you can learn to spot a thesis in another person's paper, that means you understand what a thesis is, which is key to learning how to write your own. So that's it, guys. Everything you wish your English teacher taught you about writing a thesis statement. If I can explain any of these steps clearer or in another way, let me know at SchoolHabits.com. All right? Thanks for watching.